budget session. We're going to start with a brief overview, and then we'll go to the individual department directors to give a more in-depth as well. So,
all right.
I think it's Mike now.
Take it away. Like you said, brief overview. We're going to start out with the transmittal letter. Trust all of you have seen it, but also for the public. Start with, well, as you all know, this is my first one here in North Kansas City. So, as any other year, it's my pleasure to transmit the proposed fiscal year 2023 fiscal budget. As you'll see, it has a new look and format that staff believes represents their commitment to carrying out the council's strategic plan. The budget reflects the skill and dedication of many employees, serves as a communication device on how to best allocate available resources to meet the goals set forth by you, the council. As a whole, revenues are positive. Sales tax continues to show strong positive growth, and other revenues continue to trend towards pre-pandemic levels. That being said, uncertainty still exists regarding the impact of current and potential economic and social challenges. So staff has taken this into account and remains cautious in our projections for the next fiscal year. Many revenue projections stay flat, and many operating expenses have been adjusted to reflect the exorbitant increase in costs and goods, or cost of goods and services that all are experiencing. The city's been fortunate to have substantial fund balances in several funds, including the general fund and the gaming fund. For this year, it's proposed to use these balances to continue carrying out the goals of the council and to provide the services to the community at a level that they've come to expect. Let's see, the budget document is truly a team effort. It's been impressive. The department heads are responsible for submitting and explaining their respective budgets, proposals to the budget team. I appreciate the hard work of all of them. It's been great to be a part of. So I'd also especially like to thank Finance Manager Nick Hawkins, which, as you can see, Nick's not here tonight, which we know is painful to him because this is the night of the year for him. But he's home with his wife and family, awaiting the arrival of their next family member. But I'd especially also like to thank Deputy City Administrator Kim. Nakahoto. Sorry. There's a. But it's the work that they put into this budget document. They're the core component of the budget team. What they put in with the department heads to help them stay in line with the goals and have been impressive. The same with ensuring that council goals were aligned with. As I said, some additional thanks. That they were very much a big part of the budget process. Deputy City Clerk Mallory Brown, and then our administrative intern Kyle Derringer, has been a huge part of this whole process from start to finish. So on behalf of staff, I'm proud to say we're very excited to continue the transition from our legacy printed budget to the online platform. In doing so, helps produce a budget document that follows the Government Finance Officers Association best practices and meets the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award criteria. It's my privilege to be entrusted with the production of the proposed fiscal year 2023 budget and to have worked with such an outstanding team in doing so. So I've got through that. I'm going to step through the executive overview. Sorry, as the mayor said, or as I pointed out, Nick's not here tonight. We had this all kind of outlined, who's going to take what. So I'm also going to be Nick tonight. Bear with me, but we'll get through it. He's not on our lifeline right now. So utilizing some good notes provided by Nick. As mentioned, the book flows similar to the fiscal year 2022 book, but there are some key exceptions. Here in a little bit, Kim will discuss the strategic plan, but it's a new addition to the budget document, which is highlighted throughout the budget book, tying in the goals set by all of you to the budget. So not only you can see us follow through with that, but the public as well. Executive overview, gives a high-level summary of the planned expenditures. It's up primarily due to wages and projects carrying over from the current fiscal year into next year. Many of the funds, including the general fund, project the use of fund balance. It's a combination of conservative revenue estimates and projected inflationary increases. With those deficits, we project to still be in a comfortable fund balance position at the end of 2023. We'll go over that in more detail, but first Kim's going to kind of step through the strategic plan and how it ties into the budget next year.
With that, it's on to me. So I am very excited that we were able to weave in the strategic plan into this proposed budget. It is a GFOA, which is Government Finance Officers Association, best practice. That is a document that the City Council spent last year kind of going through and forming, and it was formally adopted in February of this year. And now what we hope to do is show how the budget decisions are actually being formed by the strategic plan. So that is on, if you were following along on the printed copy, it is on page 19. It talks about the strategic plan and how the City Council went about adopting that. And on page 20, it talks about the key performance areas, which are 5 of them. The first one's financial stewardship, community works, infrastructure, economic development, and engaged organization. And if you flip to page 21, we talk about all of the items that are being addressed within this particular proposed budget. So number 2, community works, is implement complete streets, including levee trails. So the Burlington Complete Street is in phase 1 that is in this proposed budget. Infrastructure is replace NKC vehicles with hybrid electric vehicles, working toward a green fleet. And that's something that actually our intern, Kyle, who we mentioned before, worked on for us. And that funding is in this proposed document, as well as complete a fiber technology audit that is in this proposed document as well. Economic development, so the new developments include the grocery store, surrounding restaurants, and multifamily housing, as well as continued support for the minor home repair and modification program. Again, that was something that we had discussed earlier about how that particular program helps preservation of your current housing stock is economically one of the best investments a community can make. There goes a long way for building new, however, reinvesting and making sure your housing stock actually long-term keeps more affordable housing within your community. So an engaged organization. So several of the things that we worked on in our current operating budget was the 2 union negotiations, which the City Council did enter back into for another 3-year period. And one of the things that is being currently done, and we hope to have a report out sometime September, October, I'm looking over at Casey, is a report out of the compensation study. Again, what that is making sure that we are fairly and in line with the market rate for our current workforce. You guys have heard us talk several times before on how local government's people-powered. There's absolutely nothing we can do without people. We are a service industry, and most of the money that we'll talk about being appropriated tonight goes toward people because, again, we are service-based. And then, so we talked about the compensation study and the fact that the tuition reimbursement, we're proud to say that 15 employees have taken advantage of that this particular year. So on page 22, it talks a little bit about our current year, some of the things that we have hit. You guys did and are possibly in the process of considering adjusting the water and sewer rates to promote financial stability of the utilities, as well as the community works. We are in the process of hearing kind of some of the results of the River Forest Park feasibility study. That will be something that the City Council and the Park Board Commission will be hearing on August 23rd. And then after that report is complete, there will be some decisions for both the Parks Board and the City Council to consider on the future of that particular project. We've also got Armor Road, that's actually on tonight's agenda for your consideration, and that is to award the contract to complete that particular project. And the Streetcar Authority is something that at your next city council meeting, you'll hear kind of the update on that particular project. Economic development, there is continued progress on 1 North, and then the minor home repair project, which I'm so proud that the city council did that. Again, I think that is a very unique program. We are having a lot of communities reach out to us of how in the world did we do that. So I do believe that a lot of communities will look to adopt a very similar program in the coming future. Again, I don't want to kind of read through all this. Do you guys have any questions about how your strategic plan fits within this budget and how it's being presented? No? I am going to hand it, actually,
You want me to call the next people, or?
you're not supposed to let anybody know you have our cheat sheet.
How am I supposed to know what's happening?
Actually, I'm going to hand it back over because
Okay.
now we're going to do kind of a general fund overview. And again, that was going to be Nick, but that is actually going to be Mike now.
All right, I'm back. So, yeah, as Kim said, budget overview, revenue assumptions, as I spoke of earlier, we're generally keeping the revenues, the projections flat for next year. We're seeing good revenues this year, but just as a principle of budgeting, one of the biggest things, you probably heard me say, I think before, underestimate revenues and work within those. But I'm going to step through.
If you could tell us what pages you're on, or is that as well? There you
Well,
go.
yeah, absolutely.
I've seen a lot of flipping up
right
here.
Right now, I'm on 25. No. I'm in budget overview.
Okay.
Kind of walking through there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. What do you call it?
Kyle was ahead of the game here. Okay.
So I'm also following
You know it's close enough.
Nick's notes.
We'll figure it out.
Anyway, like I said, as far as revenues, we're projecting higher than budgeted in most categories. Sales tax, we budgeted flat for compared to 2022. Current projections are coming in higher, but they're staying conservative due to, like I said earlier, the general economic uncertainty. So kind of on page 26, you can see the table for the general fund, but relates to this. As far as property tax, again, we budgeted flat. We'll get the valuations from the county in early September. Just as a reminder, because the county went to the charter form, it's changed things, and as such, moved the timeline for us getting our valuations back a month. So it's a little crunch. We're hoping to have the hearing by the final scheduled council meeting in September, but it does shift things with the new form of government. Other revenues, we're projecting at budget, with the exception of the rent from Harrah's, as well as charges for services. Rent from Harrah's, we're projecting a $600,000 increase in 2023. We still think it's conservative based on how it's going right now, but we do feel comfortable with that. As far as the charges for services, that has to do with ambulance, basically, fees that we're seeing from there.
Councilmember
Yes, sir.
Saper.
Sorry.
Whoops.
Thank you.
We're on page 39 of the printed hospital ambulance fees. We're billing at currently North Kansas City Hospital $300 for a response initiated by the hospital. That's largely transferred to other hospitals and other healthcare facilities. The metropolitan going rate is really closer to $600 to $900. So we're, in effect, giving another subsidy to the hospital. At 39, huh? Well, we were getting into this section of other revenues. I know, but this is other revenues.
Oh, revenue sources. Okay, yeah, you're skipping into the detailed side. Okay.
Yeah, the details.
All right, yeah, because you brought up ambulances. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So what was the question?
And-
Did you get, okay.
So, you know, it seemed to be appropriate to change that fee schedule.
Well, that fee basically was brought about years ago due to the number of helicopter landings we had up there. It was for responses to the campus.
Yeah.
That was a $300 charge. We have since, as of what, June last year, Kim? May or June last year, we discontinued that charge to the hospital because we found that it was passing on. We were collecting ambulance fees if we went up there from our transports, plus we were charging the hospital back, so we worked with the hospital, and that fee is no longer, that was an outside fee. Our ambulance services fees are about $825 a ride.
Yeah.
That's what our
Yeah,
typical, this was basically a surcharge to the hospital because at one point, we had a overabundance of calls to their campus, and the administration at that point, and the city administration had decided to charge the hospital for responding to their campus. We have since no longer, that needs to be taken out of this document.
Thank you.
Hurting the cause here. Okay. The paper number.
All right, thank you.
Here we go.
Where was I?
Changed it.
So, as I was mentioning, we did increase our projected revenue from the rent from Harrah's. As far as gaming, the gaming revenue has steadily increased since 2020. However, admission revenue has not fully rebounded from pre-pandemic levels. Gaming fund also gets a boost from increased transfer from the Northgate Fund related to the sale of property in 2021. Though the transfer will be less in 2032 or 2022 and runs out, I think, 2032, part of the TIF. Utility rates. Yes.
So on the casino piece, on page 28, there's a table that breaks down the casino.
Yes.
So we've got other revenue going up by, you said 600,000, but the casino itself is being held flat. So where's the 600,000 extra coming from?
That's from the rental side that goes into the general fund. But this is actually
Separate from the gaming.
Yeah,
Yep,
this is
gotcha.
the statutory side of it for the gaming and the admissions.
Roger
I,
that.
I guess to follow up on that, what is the calculation on the rental though? It's either a minimum amount or a certain percent of adjusted gross revenue, which is also where the gaming tax comes from. So if one went up, to his point, wouldn't they both? be?
Right, 2% of gross winnings.
Yeah, you can't raise
The
one without
greater.
the other.
Like I said, we kind of mentioned, we're being pretty conservative on these numbers that are displayed. I mean, you guys listen to the same talk radio we listen to, in the R word, I'm not even going to say it out loud, is lubing. So I can double check what those numbers are.
Well, and we are holding. Yeah. Look,
Sounds good.
okay. Onto utility rates. The budget does incorporate the 20% increase in water and wastewater per previous discussion and direction. As far as the general fund, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. But as you know, the general fund, it provides services that support all. The fund balance regarding that, the goal is 50% for the general fund. I mean, that's the major piece. Even with the deficit budgeted of 3.27, we anticipate it will not be that high, but able to stay conservative with the estimates due to the fund balance that's been built for the general fund. With the economic uncertainty, we still feel that we're in a good position with that deficit. So special revenue funds, they include transportation or funds such as transportation, gaming, Parks and Rec, library. They have a specific purpose, a limited scope. Generally, we aim for a 25% fund balance. Nearly every fund will match that. Parks and Rec, I believe Parks and Rec and Library will be here on the 16th to speak to their, or answer any questions you might have for their budgets. Enterprise funds, again, the water, sewer, fiber, the community center, they're to operate like a business. They're expected to be self-sufficient. So, in addition to the water and wastewater utilities, that includes, as I mentioned, the fiber and the community center. Of course, they operate with a third-party agreement through NOCIX and the YMCA. Regarding the fund balances, we're working to build back the fund balances with water and wastewater. Again, referring back to the rate increases, and then the gaming fund helps offset the deficits in the fiber, communications fund, and the community center fund. Stepping towards, I believe it's page 32, where it talks about personnel. There are some wage assumptions. Wages and benefits are a significant portion of the operating budget, including over 80% of the general fund expenses. That's where most of the employees are. To stay competitive, the 23 budget assumes an aggregate increase of 10% for non-represented employees. And that's in relation to the compensation study that's going on right now. We won't know, as Kim mentioned, we won't know until fall. As you're all aware, both represented unions for police and fire. The contracts have already been ratified. They're in the budget. Healthcare, right now, health is projected to increase 13.7%. We won't know the final numbers until a little later this year, but that's what we've been told. So we've also worked that into it. That's kind of stepping through a 30,000-foot overview. If there are any questions before we move on to the departments.
All right, any questions? Any questions? All right.
I'm going to
Go. Next up.
turn it over to Kim.
Yeah, please, Councilmember Tull.
Casey, this is probably for you. The 13.7% increase seems really high. Is that partially because we kind of stayed flat the last time? I don't think there were increases.
We're being told there's several factors going into that. I mean, we're hopeful that it's going to come back a little bit less, but there's the COVID factors. There's a bunch of other fees that are going into. They're seeing it across the board.
Okay.
And last year we did stay flat, but it doesn't really have, the increase has not been that much. I think usage has not gone up that much.
Okay,
It's
it's
gonna
just
be
something that's
external
happening across
costs,
the board.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. On we go.
So we are going to jump into administration. So I am on page 42. That's kind of the beginning tab. Talks a little bit about administration and what we do. This budget includes the elected officials, city administration, city clerk, human resources, finance, information, technology, and the legal department. On the whole, there really isn't too many changes on here aside from the new position, which we had chatted about at a previous city council meeting. And really what that is a support role. We are coding that, and I am now on page 44. That is a account specialist, but that is really to assist payroll. Again, payroll is one of the, we've talked about it a lot, we'll talk about it some more. Payroll is one of the largest line items within the city's budget. And this would be a support position for both Casey, who is our human resource manager, as well as just some backup and some redundancy for our finance department, our pay app. You guys have sat through enough of our audits where they talked about some of the challenges as we're so thin. We're not able to fully realize a lot of the recommendations on redundancies and internal controls. So we're hoping that this particular person will not only help support Casey and all the great work that she does, but also allow us to achieve some of those separation of duties, of which, just as thin as we are unable to do. So do you guys have any questions about any of the changes within administration that you see? Again, really, most of it is holding steady. There are some increases in just the services that we have, meaning our dues. Some of our professional organization dues have gone up, but not by much.
I just want to say it has the intern on here is 0.25, but I can tell you Kyle does the work for several FTE.
This year, that should be 0.5.
Ooh, you got a full
We
0.5.
could not, Kyle has done an amazing job.
I was going to go 1 plus, but okay. She went 0.5.
Yes, no, Kyle has helped us out significantly. As you guys know, we've had some staffing changes, and Kyle came in early. His position, he was able to come in much earlier than normally scheduled, and we couldn't have got this budget document to you without his help. So we very much so appreciate him. If you guys don't have any questions about administration, I will move on to municipal court. Municipal court is over on page 48. Really, there are no changes with municipal court. We thankfully have been able to keep our same staff who are excellent. The judge and the prosecutor's contracts are good through most of this particular budget year. We will be looking toward the mayor and the city council for a new judge next year. But that won't happen until around March 2023. So do you guys have any questions for municipal court?
Councilmember Graves.
Is the judge retiring? Is that what you're referring to?
No, so the judge, there are some statutory regulations on age of service for that particular position, and the judge will hit that cap at that time. So it's not anything that we can do at our level. That is bound by the Constitution of the Missouri.
It's not really a budget question, but how does that process play out as far as selecting a new judge?
So it is an appointment by the mayor, just like any other appointed position. So the mayor would, and that's going to be its own little process there. The mayor, in other municipalities that I have worked for, the mayor kind of puts that out. Applications are sought. Interviews are conducted, and then an appointment is made. It's put onto a city council agenda along with the contract for services for the city council to consider and ratify.
Thank you.
No problem. So did you want me to pass the baton? Yeah. Chief Hargis, you're next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Our 2023 budget is not significantly different than the last couple of years, except for we have had not significant cost increases, but the largest increases we've seen in the cost of goods and services for about the past 5 years are EMS supplies. You're going to see some increase in that. The only different things that are in there this year that you haven't seen before is our the cancer fund, the insurance that you guys graciously voted in last year. We're going to continue that. And then there's a significant increase in our software maintenance due to our records management system that we do our National Fire Incident Reporting System on. The one we've been using for the past 16 years is no longer supported. It's basically dying. So we have to switch over. And in that process, we're trying to consolidate platforms. We have a scheduling platform now, a training platform, credentials platform, infers platform. We're trying to consolidate those. We've done went out and reached out to several different companies, and we're going to combine those into one company. and that's going to be an integration cost, and so we're working on that. That was the other significant increase. If you have any other questions about anything in the budget, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anything for fire? Councilmember Toll.
Can I ask about capital purchases at this time, or are we doing that later?
Yeah.
I was just curious to know the fire marshal vehicle and the cancer protocols. Does that have to do with exhaust? I wasn't sure.
No, it has to do with our gear. Whenever you go in someplace, even after we wash it, the particulates that it absorbs off gases, cancerous chemicals. So the standard is it's called a clean cab standard, that you keep your turnout gear and any gear you use on a fire ground in a separate compartment of the vehicle from the passenger compartment.
Okay. That makes sense. Thanks.
Councilmember Smith.
This is a little nitpicky, but item B, under education and training, looks like we have $70 million budgeted. I'm guessing we got 3 extra zeros on there.
I asked about that one this morning. I don't know what kind of racket is going on over there.
No, that's correct, sir.
Go ahead and stamp it good. Yeah.
You know, the sad part, they only increased it $6,000 too. So now I got a question about last year's budget.
Yikes. Yeah, if you need it, get trained, so 70 million sounds good.
All right. Good. All right. Thank you. Next up.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The police department's non-capital budget is relatively unchanged. The increases that you see are mostly because of goods and services, and the decreases were items that, due to COVID, that we didn't need as much money on. Our capital items, really the big ticket item on that is the replacement of the in-car camera and body cameras. They're on their last leg. We've had them, 6 years, I believe, and we're starting to see some degradation in the overall systems. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
I'm going to interject just one teensy
Oh,
little
please.
thing, and that is, there is a half a person that is being proposed in this particular budget, and that is the investigative assistant. Did you, Mark, not to put you on the spot?
No, that's
but,
fine. I forgot to
Did you want to
mention
chat
that.
just a little bit about why that's needed?
This person would be a part-time person to assist the investigations unit. It seems like more and more videos out there. It takes the investigators time to go out, collect the video, come back, sit down, watch the video. This person would take that burden off of our investigators.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
Looking down the line here at pension expense, looks like in '22 we budgeted 277. It came in actual or projected at 212, and then we went back up to 307 almost for this year's budget. Did we base the increase off of the budgeted amount or the actual projection? That's a big jump if we went on this like the actual number. It's on page 64, midway down the table. So 277 budget, 212 actual, and then 306. Like that's a pretty big jump compared to a couple lines down. You look at like health and dental. It was budgeted high,
Right.
came down and went
It's
up.
the new contract.
Okay, so that was part of
That's
the
what it
the
is.
FOP.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, wanted to make sure that we weren't just shooting high because we applied the increase to the wrong number.
No.
Okay. Councilmember Saper.
On page 61, under animal control officer, animal control, kennel attendant, animal control attendant part-time, I know in the last budget we had increased the personnel for animal control. Here I see it being broken down, and it comes out to 6/10 of a person instead of one full person. What's the reasoning behind that?
Honestly, I'm not sure because we did hire a second animal control officer, and we do have a shelter attendant. So I don't know if that's a misprint on,
Okay, if you could find out, I'd appreciate it.
sure.
Thank you. Sure.
And that might be a good moment to note that we are actually having 3 budget sessions this time. We're having tonight's, which is a good time for us to hear from everybody, provide some feedback now, some questions now. We'll have a second one where all the department heads, more of an informal setting for the public, and council will be here as well and can discuss with individual department heads as well. And then the third one is kind of a clean slate for the moment, but we can clarify a lot of these things and get final input on the third one as well. So plenty of time, definitely ask away tonight, but plenty of time to actually get these things fixed and see it again before we have to finally approve a budget. Councilmember Clark.
I was just going to say, I don't know, it does say Master Animal Control Officer right above, and then Animal Control Officer, Animal Kennel Attendee, so that might have been tucked away. Did you see that there were already 2, and then that additional? Because I thought it was 1 for a period of time, like 1.5, maybe, and then we added the other person, so I think that's been covered.
So I do have last year's
points.
budget, and that's exactly what happened, is last year what was added was the master control officer, which brought it up. Yeah, yep.
Thank you. There we go. Good, I'm pleased. Thank you. Next up.
Of course. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the Public Works budget is divided into 4 different divisions. I'm going to start with Buildings and Grounds, which starts the significant budget increases in the operation budget, sorry. That starts on page 73, and then I'm also going to jump over to page 204 after that. So on page 73, it starts the operation budget for the Buildings and Grounds. Same items as last year, but something you'll notice across the board in all of our budgets is training has increased. Our crews, use an assortment of different equipment, different machines and specialized items that, we want to make sure they know how to use and can safely use in the field. So you'll notice that increase across the board. Building maintenance is up, just kind of aging infrastructure, items that we have to frequently repair. Jumping into the capital line, so page 204 of Buildings and Grounds. Again, mainly this is large improvements to buildings and grounds in the city, so things like air conditioner units, kind of upgrades to bathrooms, and some vehicles are in this division as well. Speaking of the ongoing fight against maintenance of old buildings, we have a facilities master study proposed in this budget for this division. We want to look at all city buildings this year and just know where we're applying our efforts, if that's something to fix, replace, or just kind of start over from scratch. So that's kind of the idea behind that study. And again, a lot of other just large improvements in here. Jumping into transportation, the operation budget starts on page 78. Again, starting at the top, just going to walk through this. Training and travel increases, again, for getting our crews more up to speed on some of the equipment they use. Building maintenance, again, vehicle maintenance, same thing. We're noticing a lot of our fleet aging. And then sign replacement, that's another large increase in this operating budget. We're having a lot of vandalism, unfortunately, with street signs, and that budget seems to increase every year. Jumping into the transportation capital side, that's on page 207, if you're following along in the book. Things in there, we've increased the annual tree planting program from 30 to 50,000 this year as a goal to increase the number of trees we plant. Northgate Alley repairs, this will actually be the last year for that line item. And then one of the larger items you'll see in here is the replacement of the 621 loader and the snow blower. I think a lot of people saw that this winter. That's a 1970s piece of equipment that is really cool, but needed for us in an urban area. When we have on-street parking, we have to push all the snow to the middle of Swift and Armour, and so that's the machine we utilize to clear those roads.
I'll go ahead and stop you on transportation there so I can make I told I was going to do this beforehand.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to increase curb, sidewalks, and drainage improvements, 150,000 to 430. And that corresponds some with the transportation system assessment we're going to be doing as well. Obviously, you're out and about and you walk quite a bit. We have a lot of non-compliant sidewalks, crosswalks to nowhere, crumbling sidewalks and edges. And if we have the capacity, would like to see a lot of those knocked out, especially, as I've said, in some of our various pedestrian corridors, but also in the residential area over the next several years. So as we talked, what do we estimate? If you're just focusing on corners, you could maybe get, 80 or so extra ones done with the
You quite a
additional
few with that
funding.
amount.
Councilmember Graves.
You just reminded me about something that people ask me about. Actually, in the last week, I've had multiple people. Why are there some blocks that have no sidewalks?
Ooh, I'm not sure
Like,
why that.
right by our
Yeah,
house, like
yeah.
on 23rd Avenue, in between
On the south.
Fayette and Erie,
Yeah.
on the south side, there's no sidewalk. Like,
That's
I
we have
find
that-
myself multiple times just like walking down the street because there's no sidewalk, and it's why. Does anyone know the answer to that?
Don't know, just historic, I guess, but I mean, that's a project we can propose next year. The mayor touched on something there, the transportation system assessment. That'll be kind of a comprehensive look at our sidewalks, streets, ADA ramps, kind of also condition of pavement too. So that's something we can catch in that and start to look at. Gaps in the system, in the sidewalk system.
Are you talking about blocks that have none on both either side? Because I know you proposed, we got the Saper sidewalk there on 27th, 27th of Fayette. And I think that was the only gap that had no sidewalk on either side. I know that there's some blocks without one on one or the other.
No, I think most of them left in the neighborhoods, if my recollection. There are some that are just one-sided.
Yeah, just
now.
one-sided.
But obviously, it would be nice to complete the network in a lot of these areas.
It's
Yeah.
mainly 23rd Avenue, I think even 25th
21st. You're right, 23rd.
Avenue. There's parts, like 23rd, I think on Clay, like in between Swift and Clay, I don't think there's a sidewalk. 23rd in between my house
On the
and
south
Swift, there's no sidewalk on the south side. There's a bunch of areas that just
Yeah, yeah.
randomly have no sidewalk for some reason. I've always just found it
No,
strange.
I think that would be within scope of that budget line as well, is looking at those some of the individual sidewalks, yeah.
I remember we ran into some stuff like trees and property rights and having to get owners on board and all that before putting them in.
Yeah, that's something we address with that.
I think that the Swift to Clay on 23rd will be taken care of. There'll at least be one on one side with the new apartments going. Is that correct?
That's true, yes, yeah.
Okay, so that part will be filled.
There we go, Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, this is not really a budget thing. Before I completely forget to say something, on the interstate, coming 35 northbound, I'm assuming the street signs are MoDOT controlled or even highway. You can't see the writing on the signs. If at night, it's impossible to see because the reflectors are broken or something's missing. Nothing to do with budget, but I will forget to bring that up. And it's, if you're coming northbound, like you just don't see Armour Road and 16th, I think, you just can't see them at all.
That's northbound I-35.
Northbound I-35, yeah.
You never know with them, it may end up being our budget item.
Yeah, just wanted to put that on the radar. Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
So can I get a bit of a consensus of the council if that proposal is something you would like to see in the final version? Okay, sorry, I have to ask my clarifying questions.
Oh, just increasing that specific line item, that was 280, 150,000 to
Correct.
430.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. And by the end of, as he said, the transportation system assessment, we should have a good packet and a good idea of all of our curb, sidewalk deficiencies, well, street deficiencies, I think are part of that as well. And we'll have a plan to lead into the future on these things. Councilmember Graves.
I would say one other item just regarding trees. I know, like, you're increasing the budget for new trees, which is awesome, but what about our budget for just maintaining the trees that are there? I mean, I'm sure you're aware, like, Anthony and our ward has just been, like, decimated by ants and wind lately. I guess, Northtown, some people might not realize this, I guess, but, like, Northtown's not all the same age. Or some neighborhoods, like wards, 3 and 1, the houses, we have trees that might be 100 years old, whereas if you're in Northgate Village, you might have just little baby trees that are 10 feet tall. Some of these trees are literally like, if we have a high wind, trees are just falling down, smashing cars, houses, you name it, fences. And so it's just something to think about. I mean, I don't want to be irresponsible and let's just have plant trees everywhere and let them fall and smash everyone's property. So we kind of need to be responsible and maintain them as well. Do we have enough budget to maintain these? Do we need to increase that budget? Because I feel like they're not really maintained the way they should right now.
Sure. Well, to touch on that, so in the operation budget of the transportation division, There's 151,000 budgeted for tree maintenance, so that's maintenance of every existing tree. That was increased last year from 120,000. We kept 30,000 in there. That usually goes towards the emerald ash borer treatment. We just kept that ongoing. That's been kind of the basis. I guess we could always increase it. But.
You touched on the emerald ash trees, and that got me thinking too. Like, I have 2 of those in my property, and they look terrible. Like, the bark is falling off of them. I think we spent, I'm going off memory now, so I'm probably wrong, $32,000 on treating those trees. Are we better off, like, just cutting them down, honestly, and planting new trees? Like, isn't that kind of insane to spend $32,000 on diseased trees that the bark's falling off of them?
To be honest, that is something that we've noticed in the industry. A lot of people saying is that it's kind of losing that battle, everywhere in the metro. So that treatment happens every 3 years, so we wouldn't see that 32 come around till another couple years here. But we have talked, when that time comes, is it even worth it? Because metro-wide, that's not a battle we're winning. So, yeah.
All right, I saw Councilmember Toll. Did you still have something?
I did.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the study that you're going to do to look at our existing properties to see what needs to be upgraded or maintained better and getting kind of an order of that. I also like that you are replacing one of your trucks with an electric vehicle, and I know that's something that goes towards our strategic plan to increase our green fleet, and Chief Hargis is replacing some equipment. My question is, I don't think it needs to be a $300,000 study like you're doing for the other things, but do we have an in-house plan formulated yet for how we will meet our goals of green fleet? That's something we had discussed, like, first of all, coming up with a list of all of our engines, gas engines that we have.
For the vehicles,
Yep.
I mean, I kind of chatted, and I only chatted with a few council members. I do have a long-term goal on how to better achieve the goal that Councilmember Tull. It's not ready yet, and that would be switching more from purchase to lease. I do have a couple of proposals, and that would get us, I think, closer to what the end goal is.
But do we have a list of our current vehicles and the life expectancy of those vehicles when we plan to get those replaced?
Yes, we do. There
We
is a
do?
master
Okay.
list.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like I said, some of it is specialized equipment, which is a little tougher, and Dwayne's smiling at me, because some of those specialized equipments, there really isn't any other.
Like the large snow removal
Betcha.
vehicles that you were talking about, yeah,
You betcha.
yeah.
We are diligently trying to explore on what that looks like, and kind of some of what we chatted about before this particular meeting is because electric is such a newer technology, we really don't have a grasp of how long those electric vehicles, because nobody does, because they're new to all of us. So those are some of the questions that we staff and really all of our municipal brothers and sisters are looking at is what is the life expectancy for a vehicle that didn't exist 3 years ago? And nobody really knows what that answer is. But there is a master list. We do happen to have a master list of everything that we own and what we think the life expectancy is.
Okay, got it.
Councilmember Smith.
So on the tree thing, and not to set a deluge of people calling in, but if a resident sees a tree that is a city tree that looks like it's about to drop a limb, or it looks overgrown or in bad shape, they can call in and have Chris Cooper, I believe, handles that part, send somebody out to come and assess the tree. That's right?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll actually be Dwayne.
Hey.
But yes, yeah.
Dwayne.
I think it's a checkbox on the request form on the website as
is,
well.
yeah.
So
Good.
No matter how you want to report it, you can get it in there.
So, and do we proactively send staff out to go look at the trees as well, or do we rely on resident reports?
Oh, make sure he's on here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What we do is internally, over the last 2 years, we've stepped up our operations and we drive every single street, we inspect every single tree. There's 2,947 trees, give or take. We've been removing some that are falling on people's property or cars. But as far as what we're doing internally, along with all of our other duties that we do every day, we've taken on the role of inspecting and doing a lot of the smaller pruning in-house. We still use custom Tree Care, who's our contractor to do the big trees that are things that are our equipment we can't do with staff or equipment.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, we do. We actually have done 3 different surveys. We do a survey usually after every storm as well. Just as a note, as you've all kind of alluded to, our tree, the canopy it's getting to the end of the life of a lot of the trees. And it's starting to show ants are a big problem, rot is a big problem. We address those when we can see them, but it's a living thing, and we don't always get a chance to fix it before it actually falls.
Let me ask this. Is 80 trees enough next year?
Oh, to replant?
Yeah. Or
That's
is that an
more-
Anthony question?
Yeah, it's kind of Anthony question, but.
There we go. Sorry.
That's the division between.
There we go. That was pressure moment.
Yeah.
Good answer.
That's a division there between Dwayne and Chris. So Chris is in charge of the planting.
Yeah.
program.
That's right.
But
Okay.
we do 40 trees in the spring, 40 in the fall, and that's been for, gosh,
So it's a
Several
program.
years.
It's a regular program.
Yeah,
we've
as
been
we
doing.
noted and as we've stood out there's a lot that I think will be coming down in the next few cycles. So I just want to make sure we're getting enough. But as Anthony did say, I will note something he told me before is trying to mix the sizes of them as well, where there's
yeah,
At
the
least
tree
to that
master,
there.
the tree master plan has different species and sizes that we try to mix and match. So that way, if something comes along like the emerald ash borer, you don't lose the whole,
yeah,
crop.
but even larger trees initially. And
That's part of the idea of increasing the budget from
Yeah.
30 to 50 this year is to look at, can we get bigger caliper trees going in?
Yeah, so a good balance of planting. Okay.
Right.
Councilmember Graves.
I just had a follow-up.
Oh.
Just,
Hey, boy, go.
just while I got you, is there a way, if a resident wants to call in and ask about one of their trees, they can identify that it's a city tree? Is there a,
I actually use the Tree Keeper program, and also we look on the right-of-way map. There's some trees that will fool you in certain areas that are 30 feet from the street that actually is a city tree, like in River Forest. Excuse me. There's a lot of areas where we have to be very specific, but yes, we can.
so there's not a rule of thumb? You'd rather somebody call and say, this tree looks weird, come out and let me know if it's a city tree or not?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tree Keeper does have a lot of trees.
Tree-
It needs to be updated as
It
well.
needs to be
Yes.
updated, and it was good in the time that it was done, and it's probably something in the future that
Budget and inventory update.
might want to do.
We need it this year.
No, that's a good question, because that's one of the, just talking with the public, that's one of the biggest fake news things I get from people, is people tell me, oh, if the tree's in between the street and the sidewalk, it's a city tree, or if it's in your yard, that's not the case. There's no rule of thumb. There's times when we've noticed that there's a city tree that's in the middle of somebody's yard. So that's total fake news, like people need to just report it. And then something I've had 2 different people ask me about in the last 2 weeks, that I'm not an arborist. I don't know how to identify, I don't walk down the street identifying trees. But I've seen people in our neighborhood, because we've had a lot of tree drama lately, that say, this specific tree is not a native species. This should not even be planted here, blah, blah, blah. How do we choose trees to be planted here? And they're saying that basically the city is planting the wrong species of trees, and that's why we're having issues.
The tree planting list comes from, in 2017, we had the tree master plan done for the city. There's Davy Tree Experts did that list for us. Those were all native trees that they selected. They were a professional group that did just that. And we select the species we get from that list every year.
Councilmember Saper.
With the importance of things like trees to maintaining the ambience of the community, I'm just wondering if maybe this budget is a little bit underfunded. What would it take to actually provide a quicker turnaround or replacement of trees and extension of?
Ask for a larger budget.
Well, the current budget actually is kind of set off of that tree master plan. So they originally in 2017 suggested what we should spend on maintenance and planting every year. There's kind of some pages early on in that document that list out, and we've actually increased over time more through the 5-year cycle of that master plan, more than they suggested. We could always increase the planting budget if that was a goal, to increase the number of trees we plant. We might have to look into, if we get larger, how many contractors we hire to do that work. Right now, we only use one. We might have to look at different kinds of contracting strategies for that. But that, I guess, increasing the planting budget in the capital line could be the first step.
I'd like to see some alternatives presented in terms of
And
getting a faster turnover in.
planting is done specifically right before fall.
Well,
So,
yes.
I mean,
yeah,
it's very
not
time
in
sensitive.
terms of annual time,
Yeah.
but total trees planted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Probably the final tree question. When do you think is the right time to update the inventory?
The tree master plan?
Yeah.
It's just 5 years. This will actually be the last year. We could look at doing it this coming year out of the maintenance budget. But again, it's kind of got us set, and it's been working pretty well as far, but this will be our last year with that master plan. So we could look at updating that whole GIS system and the master plan altogether if we wanted.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right, you still got 2 more funds, right?
I do.
All right, let's go. All right, any further questions related to trees, transportation?
I would
Oh,
just
Councilmember
say,
Schultz, there you
I
go.
agree with Saper. I would be willing to increase that budget line to add more trees.
1 gajillion trees. Do my Dr. Google.
I might make some other comment, just so you know. What we do when we remove the trees, you'll see the stumps. We're going to come back through and get the stumps. So if anybody's out there asking, when are we going to get the stumps? It's going to be in the next phase. We're going to do a lot of our most dangerous tree removals first, and then we'll have them come follow up and remove the stumps.
Tree finder was tripping me out because it has stumps in there too.
What do you do with the mulch?
The mulch, we actually integrate it right back down in the landfill, and we actually smooth it out.
Can you dump it in my yard, is what I'm asking.
Yikes.
I did get a tree guy to do that like 2 years ago. It was amazing.
It was really windy
There was
when we
a
drove
little
by
bit
our
more
house.
stuff in there than I bargained for,
What-
but
some
is
of
that
the-
even an option?
We currently don't. But
Okay, we'll talk.
Yikes. All right.
Good.
Thank you. Please, water and whatever.
We'll jump into water. Page 85 in the book. So the water operating budget this year, couple items to note. Chemicals have increased. A lot of that reflects transportation cost. Of course, gas is more expensive and is continuing to be an increase across our entire budget. Also, the new water treatment plant will come online this year, and increase in chemicals was part of that project. Distribution maintenance, again, we replace fire hydrants, and it's, again, an aging component of our system, so that line has increased. Jumping into the capital of the water department, so that's page 200. The largest item in there, you'll notice right off the get-go, is Burlington water main replacement. So this is the component of replacing the water main prior to the Burlington Cycle Track project. That main is 80 to, I'm going to say question mark, years old, and we've experienced a lot of breaks on it just even this year. Armour and Burlington kind of coming to note there. Other items in this, another large one you'll see, and I should make a correction here. The lime feed replacement system, that should only be in there once. They're not sure that it's a transfer from last year. It was originally identified after to be put into place after the treatment plant project was done. That's the next largest component of the treatment plant that we need to address.
What was that reflected in the actual budget or just here in the capital improvements? That reflected twice.
It's in the, I think it's in the budget. We might have to adjust that, but it's in.
So we might be better off than what we thought.
That'll help a little.
Yeah. There we go. I'll take a paper win. That's good. All right, here we go.
There you go.
Fire department wants their $70 million for training.
The lead and copper inventory plan, that's an EPA-regulated thing that we have to do by 2024, in October 2024. So we want to get a jump start on that. That's a nationwide ruling that looks at lead and copper systems across the country and what's kind of left in aging systems like ours. Again, a couple truck replacements in there, and kind of the regular ongoing maintenance items that we have in there yearly for our aging water system.
Councilmember Smith.
Do we have anything in here for exercising valves, like going through and testing out the valves? Because that's generally when they break, right?
That is, but that would jump back into the operating system, so, or operating budget. We have a valve exercising machine that we try to utilize as best we can. It's easier for our crew to exercise a lot of valves that way, although it can be kind of dangerous and have a little more mechanical force than we want, so, but we do have a program for going around and exercising valves.
Okay, and I don't know how we would even budget this, but based on what's happened, it seems like most of the times we're exercising these old valves, they burst open. Do we have a probability on if we exercise one, it's gonna blow up, and then we budget for, we're gonna exercise 100 valves this year or whatever, and X number should blow up in our face?
So
Are we
I
setting
am
money
going
aside?
to highlight on page 201, the Water Master Plan Update and Well Protection Plan. So some of the things that we've kind of alluded to before is we don't have an exact understanding of what our infrastructure, some of the age and some of our weaknesses, a SWOT test analysis. So that particular plan, and we actually just kicked off our Stormwater Master Plan today, this afternoon. So that is helping us understand, Councilmember Smith, exactly where you're going is, what do we not know about?
Is there any insurance coverage that is offered for something like this where, if we're gonna go through and exercise a bunch of valves, these are essentially landmines, and if we hit the wrong one, it's gonna become very expensive.
There's always somebody wanting to take the gamble.
Is there insurance that would cover this? Like we pay a premium, and then if we blow up a couple valves, they cover it?
No.
Maybe if they
No
pass
product
sports-
like that anywhere?
If they pass sports
Perhaps
betting,
you're
we can- that
hitting
is
on a
weird
new
prop
private
bet.
sector
Yeah, really.
solution
Not
to
writing
a
it
public
down,
sector
yeah.
problem.
There we go. Thank you. Briefly, I will announce it is just past 7 o'clock. We are currently still in our 6 p.m. budget session, and we'll continue our budget session until we have completed this session, and then begin our regular meeting. For the 3 people that just joined.
Well, keep going here. I'll jump into WPC, which is a sanitary sewer component of the budget. In the operating budget, again, training has increased, again, same reasons, building maintenance, vehicle maintenance. I'm in the wrong one here. Thank you. Again, kind of the same similar items increases in the operating budget there. In the capital portion of that, which is on page 204, water pollution control. So a couple of the bigger items, sanitary sewer lift stations, we have 3 of them in the city. We're looking at generators for having a backup redundancy power system for those. The sanitary sewer master plan, again, like the stormwater and water distribution master plan, are going to help us move from a more reactive to more proactive and understanding our system better. And then we have our typical ongoing sanitary sewer repairs that we do every year. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any more tree questions? Water questions? No, we are good. Thank you.
I believe the ball bounces to Shu.
I'll try to keep it short. I don't have a big department, so I am literally a 5.5 department. We have 5 full-time positions and a half, and that half stands for 1 part-time for a planning intern. I believe you see the actual budget for 2022 that does not include a planning intern. So this year, we will have a little bit of bump up on that operating budget because of this planning intern. And also, there is a little bit changes in the operating budget I want to mention. We did have a new software that will be launched probably this fall. This is an interactive zoning map, and it is a data-driven online map that will be open to the public with all the zoning information that's necessary to determine the zoning ordinances. And also, I want to mention that we do have 1 equipment budget that we proposed for $8,500. This is for our iWork station. It is a plan review digital station for our building code official officer, and also we will probably share it with our public works department as well. Other than that, there's not really much change in our operating budget lines. If you have questions, then I can answer that. But I do want to focus on our capital improvement budgets. Sorry, I jumped over. Any questions for our operating budget?
Any questions? On we go.
Okay, great. So for the capital improvement projects, I really want to highlight the core functions of my department. My department really focuses on three different services. We do planning and zoning. And for planning and zoning, we serve the planning commission, as some of you guys already know, because you're sitting there. We do help the property owners and private developers. We do conduct long-range planning, including our master plans and our bike master plans. And one of those highlighted part for our capital improvement projects, I want you to know, is we're really trying to implement all the plans that recommendations from those plans. Like our bike master plan would recommend a shared use path. Therefore, we're trying to carry out those implementation enforcement. And to the building service, which is our second main function, that we do review building permits, building plans, like what you see the 18th and Swift and 23rd and Swift, and we have our staff constantly inspecting those building while they were where the construction is under progress. And we will also do issue certificate of occupancy, and we do inspect properties, and we keep property maintenance in our neighborhood. So a portion of our work really is to maintain our code and enforce our code. When I jump into the capital improvement projects, I want to talk a little bit about a few big projects that will come up in 2023, or that we inherited actually from the previous year. The first one is the Burlington Improvements. It is divided into three phases, and I believe you guys all know what these three phases are for. So phase one is for the cycle track, which is on the east side of Burlington. It is currently 95% completed for the engineering designing work, and we're still working on the property acquisition. I see a light through the tunnel that we're probably toward the end of this property acquisition exercise, but hopefully that might just be me being optimistic.
Tom must be working on that now.
He is working on it. So I am very optimistic to say that we probably will be able to get phase one started sometime in fiscal year 2023. And then in fiscal 2023, you also see that phase two and phase three, we've already budgeted for engineering designing work. However, the construction work actually won't start till fiscal year 2025. So the next project I want to highlight is the Perina Mill. So most of you guys already know that we have created a landing page on our community development website, particularly for the demolition for this giant eyesore for a long time. We are currently under the process to board it and fence it off, and we're pretty much done with that work. And the next step is we will discuss with internally and discuss with contractors and who are specialized in demolition for this particular project. And I would encourage you guys to follow up on our website. So the next big item really is the multiple shared use path that we've been proposed. One of those is a multi-county shared use path, which was actually a council item a couple months ago that we submitted a PSP grant, the Planning for Sustainable Places grant, in cooperation with the Riverside and Kansas City, Missouri. We have not heard the announcement yet. It will probably be announced sometime this fall, whether or not we'll get awarded. But we do have a budget item to conduct a study, a feasibility study for the river, for the hillside levee that runs from Kansas City, Missouri's water plant all the way through the hillside levee and connect to Armour Road. And the next item for a shared use path is the Riverfront Levee shared use path that I've proposed a few months ago and has been approved. And again, this is another PSP grant for the same cycle, and we haven't heard the results yet. One other item I do want to mention for the shared use path is the I29 Shared Use Path. This is actually a shared use path connecting 14th Avenue to Diamond Parkway. So this shared use path is currently under the feasibility study stage. I will mention a little bit more in our regular session according to that feasibility study. But we did budget a construction and engineering and design cost for fiscal year 2023. and staff has submitted an application for the STP funding, which is towarding the construction cost. And so hopefully we'll get this one carried out. With that, I'm going to leave the rest of the time for you to ask questions.
Question.
Sorry, I don't have a lot of tree items. Go ahead.
I'm really thinking of something, but I'm stuck. Councilmember Smith.
Okay, a couple from me. The Purina Mill, now that we own it and we've had the opportunity to go in and look at it and assess the structure, I would like to, not tonight, but at a future meeting, have a discussion about what we've learned about the structure, how solid or not it is, how much we can protect it. So if we could get that on a future meeting.
Sure. We can put it on the regular meeting agenda.
Okay. And then the Gateway Signage. So I know this has been an ongoing thing. The one I see here is to go near the new Quick Trip at 35. I'm not certain what that would look like. I know the design is part of this, but I'm not sure where this council stands because a lot of the Gateway Signage plan was put forth with the council that included none of us. Where we stand on continuing with that plan or putting it on pause, or if people want to continue to put gateway signs up, where that sits.
I think we'd finish what we've started for kind of the continuity. I mean, we do have some installed around town in various places. Or wayfinding signage, which is supposed to also match the gateway signage.
Right, wayfinding would be a little different than
Yeah.
the giant signs that cost $250,000. Just a thought. I would like to maybe have a discussion about that before it gets put in full motion.
Sure. I can propose an item on the regular meeting just to go through what the plan looks like,
Sure.
what has been proposed. And to be honest with you, I myself went through this exercise as well
Yeah.
when I first inherited.
Right.
A few of
So
these have
I-
been on here for
Yeah, they've been floating around for a long time, and I'd like to,
refresh.
update the thoughts.
Will do.
Councilmember Saper. Saw you too late. Saper, Clark.
Yes, I'd like to see a sort of a total summary of the estimated cost of the bicycle master plan as of current costs and what that totals. I've had a lot of people ask me about that. How much are we spending on, not in a given fiscal year, but what the overall costs are? So I'd like to see that.
So just to clarify, you want to see if the recommended routes in the master plan is being fully implemented, what's the cost will be for
Correct.
construction, operating, and maintenance?
Correct.
Okay.
Is that
Thank you.
to date or both? To date
I
and
think
then,
he wants the total cost of what
What has
implementing
been
the budget
done
master,
and what
bike
will,
master plan.
is proposed in the bike master plan to be done.
If you built all of it today, what would that cost be?
Or
That's what you're
tomorrow.
looking for. Yeah. Or even if
Those
it's already
are
built
valued
yesterday, you want them
today.
all. If you were to build this whole
Correct.
plan as
Correct.
is today,
Correct.
this is what it would cost. Okay.
Thank you, Shiv.
Okay.
Oh. Kim.
Or me.
Oh, questions. Amy
Hi.
Clark.
No,
Councilmember Clark. There
just
we
a real quick, I know we're going to discuss the signage, but I know continuity and things, but that definitely cuts out Ward 4 completely. It's just like, we're just not there. And we already have kind of, we're on the outside
Yeah.
looking in.
No, and I think most of these projects would have to come
That's all
back
I'm
to
saying.
council ultimately before anything really moves, especially on a plan like that. It would have to be a council anyways. All right. Good call. There we go. Now, further questions. Economic development.
Economic development. So we are at page 103. Really, there are no substantive changes from last year's budget, although I did receive a note from Mr. Groves with the North Kansas City Business Council saying that they will be here on your August 16th city council agenda. And right now we have them down for 30,000. They will be requesting 5,000 more. So that would bring their total budget up to 35,000. So again, I don't know the details of that. I just kind of got a note stating that they would like to chat with the city council about an increase to their budget. If you guys have any other questions about this particular item?
Questions. Seeing none. Interdepartmental. Mike.
all right. Interdepartmental includes program services.
Page 105. Page 105.
Yes, thank you. includes programs and services not provided by one specific or to one specific department, such as human resources. There's insurance, but it also includes software maintenance, real estate taxes paid to the levy district, but also programs such as trash collection, the minor home repair and modification, the NKC Healthy Citizen Initiative, and so on. There aren't any major changes this year. Continued on with what was budgeted for the current year. If anyone has any questions on that.
Questions? Councilmember Smith.
One question. I'm trying to look for stuff like other services. As a former auditor, the other services line has 40,000 in it, 80,000 we're spending this year. What is other services exactly? It's on page 108. Do we know what's in that as a sub items? Other.
From the previous budget, one of those was the anticipated training for diversity and inclusion. I don't know if the city council remembers, but last year we really didn't have an understanding of how much that particular style of training would be. So it was an interdepartmental because it would service every city employee.
Okay.
So if you're looking for kind of why that dropped, we now know how much that is.
So do we know what's in the 40,000?
No, that shows 40.
That's the diversity, equity, and inclusion training.
Okay, so it is just that one. Okay, perfect.
All right, that it for you on that one? All right, further questions on this section? Seeing none, next up, Convention and Tourism, Kim, page 126.
I'm actually going to be on 127, just to mix it up. Just kidding.
You give me a sheet to read. And then
This fund is funded by the hotel motel tax, which was approved by voters a while back. This industry, as the city council knows, there's no other word than decimated. So it is starting to rebound as travel is starting to come back in a post-COVID world, or in a world rather that we are learning to live with COVID, I guess I should say. So we are projecting, if you'll see the revenue side, that is increasing about 90,000. And again, we kind of took that down. We really froze almost every program that was funded out of this particular fund because the revenues just quite literally fell right off the cliff. So as this fund begins to rebuild, we will probably start bringing forward reprogramming out of this particular fund. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, sorry for so many questions. Is there a reason we picked 5% as the tax on that? I know other communities have much higher numbers than that on their tax. I don't know how it affects demand for the hotels, but is there a reason we have 5?
I believe that was the highest that we were allowed to by statutory. Now, there are certain taxing districts, meaning that if you were to implement a CID or a TDD, you're able to layer on a higher percentage.
Okay.
But I do believe that was statutorily the highest we could go. We are very fortunate that we have this particular one because not every city does.
Are we, in theory, does the hotel itself have to sit within the TDD or the CID?
Yeah, so if you look at several, I'll talk on downtown Kansas City a little bit.
Sure.
Those are actually special assessments that are then allocated to a room rate. That's kind of the funding mechanism that they use for that particular one.
Okay, because I know we do a lot of interesting things with these monies, and if there's a way to, without affecting demand or hurting the hotels, to increase that tax nominally.
I actually find we benefit from other people utilizing their hotel motel tax in a different and higher way, meaning that as a savvy traveler, when they look at our hotel rates versus maybe one in downtown Kansas City, the dollar amount that you actually pay, your bottom dollar amount, is much cheaper in North Kansas City. So if you have some of those more sophisticated travelers that understand how special assessments work, specifically in hotel motel, and ask what is the after, not the price I see on the internet that you charge for $95 a room, but what am I actually going to pay, they stay in this town.
All right, further questions? All right, none. On to Northgate, Kim, 178. I think that's what my sheet says. Okay.
So this particular project, we kind of mentioned it, Mike actually mentioned it during the intro. This did have a one-time kind of increase, and that was for the land sale for the 23rd and Swift apartment. So there was a $3 million bump when the city transacted that land. We are anticipating another land transaction, I'm hoping very soon, and that is for the Bloom transaction. Once that is complete, Northgate Village, all the land has transacted. So what you were seeing, and Mike kind of alluded to it earlier, so the Northgate Village, those TIF funds actually directly benefit the city, so those revenues come to us. And what that is to repay the city's investment through its gaming fund. One of the things that I would be remiss if the budget officer and me didn't say is those revenues will start to slide off beginning 2027 and halt to a stop in 2032. So when we kind of talk about we need to make sure that we are good stewards of the city's dollar, those gaming revenues, the money that you're seeing in there, will look a lot different in 2033. So again, because those monies that we receive from Northgate TIF Fund, those get intertransferred, and they kind of talk about it in here, to the gaming fund, but that will cease one day. So that is kind of some of the things that when we talk about resiliency and we talk about self-sufficiency and we talk about removing ongoing operations from the gaming fund, it is because we understand that there is a time horizon, and those projections will start to look a lot different in the next 10 years.
All right, questions? All right, on to page 181, One North. Kim.
So this is more of a pass-through account, more of your traditional TIF. So the money that we receive, we remit. So we do have to reflect it in our budget for transparency. There is some costs that we do have in there for legal fees, but by and large, this fund is a pass-through fund.
Questions? None, thank you. Next up, page 133, communications. Mike.
All right, communications is the fiber network. As you all know, it's maintained, operated by Knox. The city owns it. City splits operating deficits and surplus 50-50. Deficits up to $150,000, just as a refresher. It's averaged $10,000 in the last few years, either way. City, will also subsidize certain capital expenditures. Overall, it's subsidized by the gaming. There are no, really the only change proposed for 2023 is an increase amount for the general liability insurance.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, on to page 129, community center.
Again, community center, everyone's, you'll hear tonight from YMCA, who operates it for the city. Again, any surplus is split 50-50 as a refresher. If it's a deficit, as I have under $200,000, the city pays a management fee equal to 17% of the operating revenue, which is assumed for the fiscal year. It includes $50,000 transfer from the general fund to the Healthy Citizen Initiative for the residents, and again subsidized by the gaming fund, including any possible capital repairs. Really, the only difference again was the general liability insurance. Adjusting for that.
All right.
If there's any questions on that?
Oh, there we go. Question, yes, Councilmember Toll.
Now that we go through the backside of that parking lot to go in and vote, that parking area and sidewalk is really not good. And I have some worries about our older citizens, which we know from the very beginning of this presentation make up like 23% of our citizens, elderly people living alone. Making that long walk with the loose rock. It's the loose rock that you can lose your footing on, and I don't know who's in charge of that parking lot.
I don't have that direct answer for you right now. I don't.
Oh, please. Oh, you do. You have, okay.
Would you mind coming up to the? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Gary Lynn, Senior Vice President of Operations for the YMCA. And we do maintain that. It's our responsibility to repair it. If it gets over a certain dollar amount, $5,000, we come to the city and partner with them, and then it goes into the capital expense. But it's our job to keep it maintained and repair it and stuff. So if there's areas that we need to remove gravel and put some new sidewalk down, there's already some areas that we need to do patching. We did patching on it 2 years ago, I believe 2 years ago, and got the parking lot looking better. Patching's already wore off because of the traffic level, so
Yeah.
there definitely needs to be some work on it.
Councilmember Saber.
Since this is a city facility that you operate under contract, I would almost like to see some of the signage indicating that it is a joint project of the YMCA of Greater Kansas City and the city of North Kansas City. Something many people are not aware that it's really a city facility that's operated under an agreement with the YMCA. So I would like to see some recognition of that in signage.
Okay. There is some recognition on the inside when the building was developed and built and designed and everything like that. But you're right, there's nothing on the outside of it.
No.
So definitely open to hearing ideas.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Further, anything further on this community center? That is it. Further questions? Seeing none. Are we skipping library and parks this evening?
Correct. They'll be here on August
All right.
16th.
Perfect. With that, says adjournment on mine. Just remind everyone to review it. We now have plenty of time to review it. Don't forget to send questions to staff ahead of time, comments, suggestions, anything. Beyond that, the next meeting related to this will be August 16th at 6 p.m. Just it'll be an informal opportunity for people to have one-on-one conversations with our department heads about the budget. You don't have to be on TV, YouTube, nothing. You can just come on and have a conversation. So come on down. August 16th at 6 p.m. August 16th at 6 p.m. With that, we are adjourned. Boom.